Hello everybody, Neon here, doing another video on budget decks here for you. They're doing this over the course of the next week or two, doing some more beginner content because I haven't been doing these in a while, and I wanted to get back to touching base with our newer players. This deck is on the Hooru Control build, and I'm really excited to share this with you because I generally the control decks in Eternal that have been good have cost just a bajillion stone to put together, and I think that now we have for the first time a control deck that is actually viable, that doesn't require just a ton of shift stone to put together. There's a few caveats on that, but we'll get into that as we go forward. Now, for those of you who don't know what a control deck is, you're kind of seeing it a little bit in action right now, where I'm drawing a lot of cards, I'm generating a lot of card advantage, and then playing a lot of removal spells. It's kind of just the core of the deck, and that once you've kind of gotten into this position where you have a lot of power, you have a lot of cards, you kind of just find any old way to win the game. And this particular game, I'm going to be focusing on using that Throne Wardens. He's a great way to both stabilize your life total and to end the game because he's a durable threat as well. So this gives you a bit of a flavor about how these decks fundamentally operate. And I know there are some people who maybe are coming from other card games who are really big fans of the controlling archetype, and so I'm happy to be able to offer this to you as something that you can try out as a way to get into that gameplay style in the Eternal card game. So using the clan tactics here to kill our opponent's 5/5, we're going to start beating in with our 4/4s, and you can kind of just see that the game is basically won already, because if you just look, like, our opponent has 1 card in hand, we have like 7 cards in hand, half of those cards draw more cards, so it's pretty overwhelming the position already. But going to continue putting on pressure like this. Wants to just try to close out the game. I'm going to show you, though, a little interaction here that is useful to be aware of when you're playing this style of deck. I could actually just win the game right here, but I want to show you this. If you have over 9 cards in hand at the end of your turn, you have to discard. It's one of the rules of the game, and it does come up if you're like really far ahead in the game, or sometimes if you're not drawing a lot of power in the mid game. But we're just going to end the game though right now with a big Hadouken, as we just saw, and we're going to take then a moment to look at the specifics of the deck list. So as I said, the defining features is a lot of removal spells and a lot of card draw spells as the core of the deck. Some of these ones, like Lightning Storm, Defiance, Permafrost, Vanquish, all a lot of them are see tons of play all the way up to the top ranks of Master, so they're good ones to craft. For example, we have a lot of card advantage in the form of Wisdom of the Elders, Strategize. This version of the deck is playing Swindle, which is not a great card, not one that I would be playing on purpose, but it is a budget-friendly version of a card draw effect if you have it for your collection that you can include here. Lightning Storm is the best sweeper that we have access to at just common and uncommon level. Really good to pair, though, with the Jotun Hurler's Snowball, that you'll have some opportunities to do that. Our finishers, we have Throne Warden, Thunderstrike Dragon, Adaptive Predator, and Eileen. These are all cards that are either commons or uncommons, or they are cards that you should get in your starter decks. They're really not the best, though. Like these are not the finishers that I would choose were I to build this deck right now with my collection, but you can, they're okay for getting started in that way, but I would be focusing on trying to upgrade those. There's like a bunch of other cards that are possible, like I have the Career Albatross there that I just showed momentarily, like that's like okay at this purpose. You can also play Steel Legionnaire, basically anything that is like, you look at it and it's a, you're probably an uncommon and it's good at killing people, usually costing like 5 or more. You can probably play it in this version of the deck. But we're going to talk now about the mid-budget version of the deck. This is the version of the deck that is including rares, but not legendaries. The few ones to point out that are big power specs, big advantages to the deck. Harsh Rule. This card is incredibly powerful, especially against unskilled opponents, you really want to have access to that. Ice Bolt, this is another big power spike for the deck, very good at handling some of the bigger units in the game. Genève Merchant gives you access to a market that has a lot of versatility and flexibility, so that's a really big advantage. The Royal Decree takes away some problematic cards. Unseal and Island's Choice are great counter spells. Also, we're playing Korvat Castle. Now, the reason I'm pointing this one out specifically is this is a card that comes from Homecoming. This deck gets a lot from Homecoming. I'm not even playing all of the ones that are possible. Honor the Claw, that is one that's possible, but we also have the knife. There's a 6-cost justice weapon that comes from there, really powerful. Our win condition is Svetia's Sanctum, this generous little green dudes for every spell that we play, and we're playing a lot of spells, so this is ultimately how we're going to win the game. But that gives you a rough idea about how this version of the deck functions. You do need to have the that campaign. I think that that's one of the first things that I would do as an investment if you like this style of deck, because you get so many wonderful tools. But beyond that, just like the harsh rules and the merchants, etc. Like, these are all great ways to beef up your deck, and you'll really feel as you go through playing this deck and building this deck, like the power level is constantly going up. Because that first version isn't that great, but I think that this version here is probably about enough that you could get to master with it, with especially enough practice and a bit more tuning to whatever it is that you're particularly seeing. But we're going to play a game with it to show you a few more of the interactions with it. Once again, this is playing against the computer, it's playing against the gauntlet. Both of these versions of the deck should be enough and powerful enough to get you to high ranks in the gauntlet, master in gauntlet, which is of course a great way to build your collection. We also have the opportunity here to see some really fly plays from my opponent right here. So seek power, excavate our own seek power. Just masterful. You didn't have enough power already when you had 5 power in, total, but, needed that extra 1. We're going to see our opponent once again seek power again. Big shock that they drew that for the turn. And then, what do you know? Another excavate on the seek power. So, like, what a genius. Like, what a visionary. So hopefully this dispels any myths about the DWD hacking and using that as a way to punk people out of their games. But one thing I do want to point out is that this version of the deck does require a lot of decisions. We just saw Honor the Claw there, having to discard a card for you. Like, this is something that you'll notice a lot in this version of the deck, that you are making a lot of decisions. You are forced to choose and decide how much power do you need, what are you most concerned about as your threats, etc. Like, I think that's something that you're going to have to get used to playing around and with, because this deck really relies very heavily on making those sorts of exchanges. Here I actually technically make a very small mistake. I should play my card draw effect before I make any decisions. Not really that important. I'm probably going to be playing the snowball one way or another there, but it's fine. We are going to continue our aggression, though 2 points at a time. But like, once again, like, this isn't a deck that is about like punking our opponent out of the game, developing big threats. It's not really necessary. I just want to point out like one subtle thing. Our opponent has a total of 2 Shadow Influence right now. They've played Seek Power 3 times, and then they have a 4 Shadow card in their deck. So they are making some tight plays. But we're going to start now to work on them with our Palos. You'll see already, just like this is a really, really powerful card. Has allowed us to actually start putting our opponent under some pressure. It's generating card advantage in this way. It kind of just takes over the game over the course of these turns, and really just like rockets me from having like some card advantage to just tons of card advantage. So attack in for 6. Draw more cards. Also want to show you another interaction here that is important to point out and to be aware of. You can play Honor the Clause to discard the Privilege of Rank. This is the reason really that the Privilege of Rank is in the deck altogether. Just going to kind of discard some cards at random. I can't really lose at this point, assuming that I don't disconnect or hit by a meteor, that kind of thing. But we are in a very good position right now. We're going to sack the city, play the Sanctum. The Sanctum now will actually contribute to us being able to finish the game, start attacking in with our 6/6 Berserker. And I also just want to show you one more subtle interaction here where you can play cards at fast speed to generate your golems. And this is a great way to put your opponent under some additional pressure, have a surprise blockers, that kind of thing. Svetia here is going to block our opponent from being able to play any counterplay, so we know that we can just go for the win without any issues. So that'll do it for that game. And before we end, we're going to just quickly take a look at Eric 9099's version of Hooru Control that he used to win the ECQ Master Ranks Challenge. This is playing cards like Mars Chains. This is a very powerful Justice Control finisher. It is, of course, a legendary card, but it's worth crafting once you get to that point in your collection development. This card is kind of impossible for a mid-range deck to beat if it's actually in play. Like, obviously, it costs a lot to actually get into play, but it is, really brutal in being able to shut out the game. So it's a very powerful finisher in conjunction with things like the Svetia Sanctum that you can put together. We have Scourge of Frosthelm. Also, this is another card that you can use it's particularly good in the mirror. I wouldn't build this one particularly quickly, but it is a very powerful and important tech card. It hasn't really seen a lot of play in other decks other than this one. Maybe a few like combo decks that try to cheat it into play. So don't try to prioritize. Don't worry about prioritizing this one. Another one that I would prioritize a little bit more is Pristine Light. This is a powerful sweeper that can kind of often be a one-sided sweeper as well. So this is a one that I would keep an eye on and try to build those up when you have the opportunity to do so. There are some campaign cards that I've added into this deck too that are pretty powerful additions. Hailstorm, this is a big upgrade over Lightning Storm, so you're going to want to have this. It's from Dead Reckoning. It is the only Dead Reckoning card that I really want in this deck, to be frank, unfortunately, but it's a good card. Don't worry though, like you'll be happy about it. There's other good cards in that campaign. Vision of Austerity. This is another card that you actually you really need to have access to this card. You have no other tools to really access and answer your opponent's relics. I guess you have Royal Decree, but this is the best way that you have to interact with them once they're already in play, and you need to get this from your campaign, unfortunately. But so that's ones to keep your eye on though, like when you get enough resources together, and if you like this kind of deck, then this is a good card to invest in. This deck can also be then transitioned into things like playing Hooru midrange if you like. All the deck lists though are of course linked below, including my recommended Hooru midrange build. But that'll do it for me today. Hopefully this was useful for you. Be sure to support the channel, check it out, leave your comments. If you have any other suggestions about decks that you want to see done in a budget capacity, I would love to hear that. But thank you so much for joining me today. Take care, everybody.